Good afternoon and welcome to Tea with Ann Marie with yours truly, Ann Marie Sorrell. And with Tea with Ann Marie, we're always spilling the tea on business, politics, and community happenings. And today will be no different. I am joined by a very special guest who reminded me of where I met her. It's so amazing to um, come back across people and reconnect with people that I've met in the community and that we just had, an immediate connection. And so I'd like to welcome Miss Natalie Robinson Bruner to the show. Welcome, Natalie.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me. It's so awesome to be here with you today. I'm so excited.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and so we had a great time at that event. And so I'm glad we get to reconnect in a professional way this time.
I know. That was pre-COVID when everybody was just, I think people are still just out and about, but really out and about,
Hmm.
just living our best lives.
Yeah, it was definitely an awesome event. But thank you for having me here today. I really enjoy the opportunity just to sit here and talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to just first of all see, how are you doing? I mean, how was your week this week? TGIF.
Well, first off, thank you for asking. Yeah, I am so thankful. It is Friday. It has been a very hectic week. I was telling Audrey that my son had to go to the ER this week, and the internet it was going in and out, and so it's just been like thing after thing. But that's kind of how life does to you, and you say, okay, go ahead and keep throwing. I'm gonna keep coming at you and keep doing what I need to do to persist and move forward.
Absolutely. Well, that's
Yeah.
all we can do. And, it's good to just keep positive
Hmm.
and through it all. I think that, so many people are just dealing with so many things coming at them right now, whether it's personal or business or
Hmm.
family. Life is
Yeah.
definitely happening with a lot of us. So we just got to stay positive and stay focused and just make sure we surround ourselves with good people who's going to lift us up as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I had my family there to support me and to help me during that time period, and so it's always good to have people that you can lean on and to be there for them when they need help and support too.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
wanted to talk with you about your business. You're the founder and principal strategist of Glad Ed Solutions. And you train and coach leaders to better engage their workforce and retain employees. You're an experienced leader overseeing a multi-tiered organization that serves thousands of people
Mhm.
in the nonprofit and educational world. 20-year experienced leader has led national organizations, conducted research on organizational development topics, and you've been a TEDx speaker. Okay, definitely want to hear about that and where we can find it. And so let's talk about Glad ED. But before we dive into Glad ED, tell us, tell me about your story. I feel like everyone has a story, and I like for people to really share their story and their journey to, where they are today.
Mhm.
With those who are listening, because I think there's always little nuggets here and there in everybody's story that people can relate to or connect with, or just even be uplifted by. So share your story.
Sure, thank you. Um, so my story, it kind of started off when I was, I guess, a little kid, right? And so I remember, being home in bed waiting for my dad to come home and him not getting home till like 9, 10 o'clock every night, completely tired. And when you get home at that time, you don't really feel like playing with a little kid, right? Even though I should have been asleep, I was not. So he would, yeah, sort of come home really drained and burnt out, and I would just want more from him. And then as I became an adult and started working for different organizations and companies, I saw that pattern repeating where I would come home too burnt out to be with my kids, and not feeling really invigorated to do anything else outside of just getting up and going to work. And so I also began to hear those stories with some friends and some colleagues. And so I'm like, there are some things going on within the work world that truly needs to change, where we can begin to engage and inspire people, to the point where they not only want to give their best selves to their jobs, but also give their best selves to all parts of their job. You don't want to come home from work so drained and tired. You don't want to play for your kids. You don't want to go volunteer in the community. You just don't want to do anything. I want you to feel invigorated, engaged, inspired. So at the end of the day, like, you are better for your organization, you are better for your family, and you're better for your community. And so that's sort of where the beginning of it came from. And so, I didn't tell you this either, but I'm also getting my doctorate in educational leadership. And so as I begin to study these topics and these principles, there's just some core principles that unfortunately they kind of don't teach you when you become like a leader or a manager, right? They're like, oh my gosh, you're the best at this. You get to manage everybody. So, and then you kind of make mistakes along the way and then you kind of figure it out. But if we can sort of shorten that time period of that learning curve, then people can really begin to be a little bit more effective in those leadership roles sooner, make the work engaging for the people that are on their staff and on their team, and thereby making the work world a little better place.
Wow. Well, that is interesting. And we're in such an interesting time. And I definitely want to ask you later about, workforce is just in flux right now. Companies are struggling. So your phone should be ringing off the hook right now.
So in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. And so for the organizations that are usually the ones that are on the right track, and so they're reaching out to their employees, they're trying to understand who they are, what they want. They are reaching out to me because they're like, I want to be better. Like, that's always their goal. I want to be better, and so they're trying to figure out how to be better. Those that probably need my services aren't necessarily the ones that are reaching out to me because they're saying, oh, it's the industry right now. It's sort of the lay of the land, how employment's going right now. And so they're putting it off on everything else instead of taking ownership of what they can do as leaders, as organizations to redirect this quote unquote great resignation that we're in right now. And so, yes, it's ringing off the hook, but I wish those who needed me were the ones that were calling me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what it is that you actually do. And maybe from this show, we can get your phones ringing off the hook. So tell us, take us through, your expertise specifically with your coaching and everything, and how you're able to really provide solutions to these companies.
Right. And so we do it from a couple different ways. So one, I work directly with leaders to help them to sort of fill in the gaps for their leadership knowledge. Because usually people are good at some things and not other things. And so we sit down and we take some assessments of who they are as leaders, where are their strong points. I wish more organizations did a 360 annual review. I'm just throwing that out there as a way for leaders to not only sort of get the perspective of their supervisor of how they're doing, but also for the direct reports to really understand how are they leading them and are they effective in their leadership skills. I think it also empowers the employees to say, we're a part of this and it's a team as opposed to just a supervisor sort of having all power within this dynamic. And so that's one way we sort of work with it. And so we coach leaders. We have a training series for leaders to help them bring them up to a certain level. Then we also talk about sort of different topics when it comes to within the organization. So we do a lot of, DEI work. We do some employee engagement work, really understanding what systems need to be in place within an organization for them to really engage employees and to make it be an inclusive environment. And then if you want to go even deeper and say, what is my organization struggling with? We have consultation services where we will sort of take you through different assessments for you to really understand like what specific area is my organization struggling with and what can I do to really help my organization begin to move forward. And so those are just some different ways we work with leaders as well as organizations to help them to move past where they may be stuck and may not understand where they're stuck. They see the problem, but they don't quite know why the problem exists. And so we get them over that hurdle to understand the why and then sort of help them with strategies on how to continue to push past that.
Wow. Okay. Well, very, very important work. I want to get your thoughts. You talked about the what's been coined as the Great Resignation, and I just know in my circles, I'm on different boards and a part of different chambers of commerce, a part of different corporate and leadership organizations, and I'm hearing the challenges of not just recruitment, retention, but there's just even in construction, there's a 430,000 person labor shortage. You have employers throwing the kitchen sink at people right now to get them to be hired. So, from your perspective and the trends, what has led to this great resignation? And B, what can, if anything, what can leadership really do about this for those who are leading companies, employers? I mean, I'm an employer. What can we do about this?
Right. And so some of the things that have sort of really led up to this is really the pandemic, right? Um, we had the time to stop and to think. Like you're so used to going and doing things, this happened. Like I said, internet went out, kids, like bam, 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 bam. You're just switching from thing to thing. And there's very little time within our day, our week, our month to stop and reflect about what you're doing, who you are, what do you want out of life. And so we kind of saw this with George Floyd, right? And so unfortunately, this had been happening for a while, but because the whole world had stopped and was looking at the situation of what was going on, it really resonated to begin to understand that this is not who we want to be as a society, and let's begin to start to move forward. And I think that's what's sort of happening similarly in the working world, where we had to stop and say, is this really what I want to do? Is this the environment that I want to be in? Is this sort of feeding my soul, my mental health? And then being able to move forward and figuring out, okay, what really does. And so as people are starting to really figure out, like, what do I want to do? Who I want to work for. I've had, because I'm an employer too, interviews with individuals that came and asked me, what's your DEI policy? Like, what's your ratio? And I was like, I gotta look that up. I don't know that off the top of my head right here. And so they're really becoming aware of where they want to be. And so I think as leaders, we have to listen to our employees. It's a dynamic where, we need them and they need us. And for a long time, it really hasn't maybe been sort of relayed that way. But the power of the people are starting to rise up. And so we need to really begin to listen to employees. What kind of environment do they want? What's important to them? How do we craft the work in a way that sort of really lends to their needs, while we at the same time get what we need as employers. And so those are just some of the things that we'll definitely need. But like I said, I'm sure Anne Marie will join us back in a couple of seconds, because she's probably experienced some of the same things that I have. But just some of the things that we have going on when it comes to leadership development, because as you understand, there's a lot of things that are going on in the working world, especially when it comes to the great resignation. Employees are starting to also want to start their own things. We see a lot of new businesses rising up, even though we saw a lot of them sort of close during the pandemic. They have the opportunity to come back now. We also have the opportunity for individuals to really think about what do they want to do. And so we see a lot of people actually switching fields. I had a friend who decided just completely to leave the entire nonprofit world and said, hey, I'm going to go off on my own and start my own business because it's what I always wanted to do. And this is the opportunity that I have to make that shift. And so they were afforded the luxury because of the pandemic, as horrible as some of the things that came out of it. It did allow that time for reflection, and so she was able to make that switch. And hi, I'm just rambling on.
Hi. My apologies.
It's all good.
You talking about internet issues, and mine just decided to like stop.
See, it's not just me.
Woo, I'm glad you kept going. Please continue.
Yeah, I was just talking about sort of what employees want, and so they are having the opportunity to sit down and really reflect on sort of what they want out of life, what they want to do. Sharing some stories of friends that I had that completely switched industries because the pandemic sort of afforded them that luxury to stop, sit, and think, and then for some people actually, lost their jobs. And so when you lost your job, when you go back, where do you go back? Where do you want to go back? You now have the option to sit and think about that. And so, yeah, just some of those stories of people that and clients that I've sort of dealt with that have had that revelation.
Well, I want to pause there because I really feel like it's the government officials were getting it wrong, because they thought, and they were really making this heavy push that, oh, people just want to sit home and collect unemployment. This is why people are not going back to work. This is why there's a labor shortage, because folks just want to be on unemployment. So we're just going to stop unemployment checks. And I'm like, do y'all really think that folks out here just like living their best life in Florida, particularly off of $275 or $300 a week? Like, y'all really think folks out here living their best life when rent alone is 12 to 15, 17, $1,800, not to mention what mortgages are
Yes,
a
ma'am.
month. Like, so I felt like, and I remember telling my peers, especially, when I go to these, chamber meetings and the economist is doing an update and this is what's happening. And I'm like, no, that is not what's happening. You guys are like under a rock or something, because these, people are just not sitting at home collecting unemployment just because. Now, if they got a little extra money that they can put towards investing in a new career, or whether it's via education or starting their own company. But I thought the same thing. People just had time to reflect and they decided enough was enough.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, and I think even before the pandemic, the gig society was
Mm-hmm.
already shifting how the workforce was developed. I think having freelance opportunities, whatever your profession is, whether you're an IT person or a writer or communicator, whatever, a lot of freelance gig platforms had been increasingly popping up. There were some for years, but even more. I think, having the Ubers of the world and Lyfts of the world, and then the pandemic really just made those companies explode and made people, in some sense of the word, have to do that work for income. But then I think in doing that, they realized I have a little more freedom. Like,
Yes. And so I think, as you're talking about that, we're so used to the 9 to 5 in the office at a desk, right? That was a perk. You had an office, right? You had an office with a window. But now we're beginning to understand that maybe that's not as much of a perk as it once was. As we're starting to grow up, like the perk is not having to drive in traffic every day. That is a perk.
I had to deal with that yesterday. I was like, ooh, between virtual meetings and now in person, and a combination of the two, of me trying to, instead of going from one virtual to the next, it's like, oh, I got to get in my car and drive. Oh, this is new. Yeah, but continue on.
So it's the freedom of being able to, go pick up your kids, be back and get back to work, of really sort of crafting your day in a way that best allows you to do everything that you want to do. And so I think it has sort of was starting to come to conversation, with a lot of individuals. I know in our organization, I had started to the conversation around remote work before this had happened. Us moving to some more virtual platforms for some of the things that we did, just because I saw that sort of coming. The pandemic sort of probably pushed us ahead about 5-10 years when it came to that, of forcing us to say, okay, does this meeting need to be face to face? Can we accomplish these things maybe via internet, and then say face to face when we want to do some additional things? Now, I am not a proponent for eliminating face to face like 100%. I think we still need to get together at some point to have those relationships and begin to build with one another, but it does not need to be 40 hours a week to build a relationship with somebody. And so I think we're beginning to understand that. And also, you got to understand that we got a generation coming up that builds relationships online. Like that's how they do it. And so it's nothing to them to say, I have a friend that lives across the country or across the world, and I feel that they are as much of my friend as someone in my class because I connect with them more. I have more interest with them. and I want to be in relationship with them. And so when you have a group of young people coming up that have that perspective on this interaction online, they really don't see the purpose of the face to face. Like I don't see the difference between the two.
Well, and that's interesting because I really feel that we're going to feel even bigger shifts, especially with technology. I mean, Facebook with rolling out Meta, for example. But even before that, there's another platform called Spatial that we were exploring with our company, which was more of a virtual augmented reality type situation, where we could work in teams in this virtual world. So I think that there's so many ways that the workforce is going to continue to shift. But like you, I also believe that there still has to be some in-person interaction. We're in I'm in a creative space. So, we do marketing, advertising, communication. So us being able to get together is so important, to even just the exchange of ideas and brainstorming and the energy in the room. And I actually witnessed this yesterday with one of our new clients and one of our team members, where I was like, oh my God, you're so much more interactive and engaging in person than behind the computer. We've had, like, even with us, we've had new team members who for the most part, their work for the past year and a half has been behind a computer. And that's really just not the reality of how our company even have functioned for the past 15 years. So it's very new, but I'm also wondering, with technology like virtual reality, augmented reality, how that's going to also change the remote workforce and still create this feeling of being there, but not being there, if that's going to be good or bad or a combination.
I think like most things, it'll be a combo. So there are going to be some wonderful things that come out of it, and some things that we're like, ooh, I didn't really expect that. Some unintended consequences, as with most things. But yeah, I mean, I love VR. I think it's like one of the coolest things ever, and I would love to be able to be in VR with an employee. Man, that feels real to me. If they are in VR and we're in the same space as when they're in that virtual world. And what I really think we need to see is that the possibilities are opening up beyond what we had ever imagined, like ever. Like growing up, we had never thought about, having meetings via Zoom. Like internet was like just popping when I was a kid. So to be able to now to go to this level where we're working together, reaching out to people, meeting people online, dating's online now. Everything that we had never thought about before has now been able to be amplified and deepened by this virtual connection that we now have. And so the possibilities are going to only begin to multiply. And so I think organizations need to be open to that. And so, I have like a critical thinking class as a part of the leadership series where, as a critical thinker, you really need to be open to possibilities, open to maybe the way you're doing it is not the best way. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe there's something out there that you don't know. Maybe there's a new idea that could come from any place that can really help you move forward. And I think organizations need to be open to, hey, there's a lot out here. There's a lot changing. We haven't even gotten to AI and how that's going to change the way we do work.
Yeah.
But there is an influx of technology, an influx of ideas, people from across the world, globalization. There's just a lot that's happening within the work world. To stay stuck on an idea of the way it used to be is not going to be beneficial helping you move forward in your organization's life cycle.
No, that makes good sense. So, as a coach, and I definitely don't want you to give it all away. So, what would be like the top 3 tips that you would provide for leaders, executives, employers, HR managers, whomever, but particularly your leaders and executives? What are the 3 tips that you would provide for them, considering where we are currently with our workforce and the future of workforce? We're talking about technology. We're talking about remote work not going anywhere. But for people that are on the front line, they don't have the ability to work remotely per se. But there are some things with technology that's also taking away their work. So there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle. How do you coach, or what are the 3 top things that you would coach leaders on regarding this within their organizations?
So I think it really depends on the leader, first off, because everyone comes in with different skill sets and capabilities to move forward. But some of the top 3 things that I see really has to do with listening. So listening to a lot to their direct reports, what they want, who they are. I think we don't stop and ask, our direct reports, like, what are your career goals and how can I help you get that? Yes, I want to make sure that you understand, our KPIs and our annual goals and make sure that we hit those. But how can I help you in developing the way you want to grow as whatever it is that you want to be? And so stopping to listen to our direct reports, who they are, what they want to do, and then assisting them in becoming what they kind of really want to do. I think another thing is to really be a little strategic. So as we had talked about, really life happens, trying to manage people, what they're doing, they're moving here. No, this wasn't turned in. Got to go back and do this. To take some time to stop and to really think and reflect about what needs to be done and how do you get there. And so one of the things that I used to love to do, and I don't mind sharing this because it's not really mine. I think it's like Steve Jobs or something, where he used to just sit and like stare at a white wall. And so I had started doing that for about a few months, not for long, maybe, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And the ideas that comes when you stare at that white wall and you tell your brain to stop doing everything that it's doing and just to let it flow. It was amazing. I mean, it was some of the best strategic work that I think I've ever had in my career when I had that practice and luxury to do that, because I really was able to figure out, where do I want to go? How do I get there? How do I utilize the skills of the employees on my team to get there? And while at the same time sort of feeding them and making sure that they stay engaged. And so that's one of the ways you keep people engaged is, what do they want to do? What do they want to learn? Do they want to learn budgeting because one day they want to be a manager? Like, have you asked them that? Then bring them along, sort of coach them. As you talked about how sort of AI and different technologies are overtaking people's jobs, sit down and ask them, what do you want to do? Let's begin training them to move into the next role of where we still need people. And so, all the jobs aren't going to be taken by computers as much as we say that. There's still going to be some things that people need to do. And so how do you train people to get ready for that next step? And then I think the final one is just, and it sort of feeds into the first one, is communication. And so being open, authentic. A lot of times there's this wall up between leaders and like their team and direct reports where, you're the leader, they're the team, there's a separation, as opposed to saying, we are a team, we're doing this together. I have, family issues just like you, I have car issues just like you, internet issues just like you. So we're in this together, and it builds a sense of camaraderie. And saying that, we're in this together, we're experiencing life together, we're moving towards our goals together. I'm just the one that kind of reminds us on a regular basis of what our goals are so that we can keep going in that same direction. And so I think those are probably the top 3 things I've seen when it comes to different leaders. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry.
It's all good.
No, those are great tips. I want to not totally switch gears because I always like to interject some, and we talked a little bit like the Great Resignation, some national news and tea. But as it relates to even what you're doing, there's an article in CNN that talks about how companies and states are fighting Biden's employer vaccine mandate, but local efforts show mandates work. So this is another employer issue. This is another leadership issue. And if you're 100 employees or more, you're having to make this decision, not even a decision, you're mandated pretty much. But if you're under 100 employees, like small businesses, then you kind of have the option, but I'm sure the pressure is going to kick in at some point for it to be kind of like a thing across the board, depending on how lawsuits and stuff like that, because I see Florida's suing. So what are your thoughts on this mandate? And again, this is another thing that you're going to have to be coaching leaders and employers on, because we are seeing where people are either getting fired or they're quitting their jobs because of the vaccine mandate.
Yes, I have seen people quit their jobs, and I'm so happy you asked this because our organization is under that federal mandate of getting vaccinated, and I've actually been working on a vaccine equity campaign. So like a lot of work in the vaccine space. Um, so there are a few things that need to happen when it comes, and I've spoken to a public health specialist about like how do you get people to get vaccinated, like how do you do it. um, so one, you need to sort of help with the availability of the vaccine, and so some of the things that we've done is we've held vaccine clinics on site to reduce the barrier of getting to a place to actually get vaccinated. And so we've actually had a lot of people that said, oh, it's right here, I might as well get it done, you say I got to do it, as opposed to saying you have to do it now, go find your way to a
Mhm.
vaccine site to get it done. No, I'm going to assist you in getting it done because I'm saying it has to be done. And I think that's one of the things that leaders need to recognize is that if you ask something of your employee and make it a requirement, then you need to help them make sure they get it done and support them in getting it done and saying just do it and go figure it out. um, Another thing is understanding sort of what it is, and so we also had some conversations about it. And so we had actual medical professionals come in, talk about what is a vaccine, what is this particular vaccine, how does it work, let's answer all of your questions related to it. And so reducing that ambiguity of what is this, I'm not sure about this, I got a lot of questions. Okay, you got questions, I can respect that, let's go ahead and get those questions answered. And so again, it's not the devaluing of their beliefs and thoughts, but it's saying, okay, I'm going to address it and figure out how can I help you get vaccinated, by making sure that you have all the knowledge necessary to make an informed decision about this vaccine. A lot of people use the ski incident as a reason to not get vaccinated, and we got to remind them that they actually kept the the cure from them. They weren't trying to give them what they needed to get better. And so it's not quite the same situation. And so when you begin to have these conversations and open people up, they'll sort of have their questions answered and be able to make a better decision. So we saw that as well. And then also, just being real with some of the consequences that happen. It's not a joke here of what's happening to some people. I've lost family members. I've had friends that have lost husbands. Like, it's like people are really being lost, and it's not just people with pre-existing conditions. Yes, that is a very high percentage, but it is even catching those that are seemingly completely healthy, and just weren't vaccinated, and unfortunately went through, one person in particular, a very long battle. I'm sorry, we just kind of lost them. Yeah, and succumb to it. And it's a reality, and we're saying we don't want you to go through that. We don't want your family to go through that. We don't want your coworkers, your friends, your loved ones to have to not be with you. Like, please take the time, take the shot, reduce your chances. Here are the numbers are real. And so it's about really sort of opening up their perspectives from multiple points of view, of knowledge, understanding the consequences, making it easy for them to really help with that mandate. And of course, Florida would be suing. But if we begin to really understand, like, what vaccines are, because we take vaccines, like, you still got to take vaccines to go to school. It's not a new thing in society where all of a sudden vaccines are an issue. Um, and you can sit and talk with them about whatever questions. I've heard, oh, they came up with it too soon. I'm like, if you had the whole world working on one problem, what do you think is going to happen? Like, like everybody, all the scientists were all focused on this one problem. A lot of them have put down their research and just focus on this vaccine to help move us forward as a society. And that goes to the knowledge base that we have within our society and throughout the world, that if we all sort of banded together, thought together, there was a lot of open source knowledge when it came to the vaccine to really help people to, for scientists at least, to share what they knew with each other to begin to help move us closer to the vaccine. And so it wasn't something that just popped up overnight. It was some of the brightest people that we have on the planet working together on a single issue. And that's kind of what happens when you do that. So as leaders, those are just sort of some of the things that you can do while throwing in some vaccine education.
No, I love that. I love that. I think that the challenge is that you can do all of that, but you're still going to have people who, I think, from a health rights standpoint, feel that their health decisions are being infringed upon. And saying, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that these are some facts that employers are going to have to continue to face. And with that, they still run the risk of losing a big segment of their workforce, potentially. So because there are still people that you're going to tell them the science, you're going to answer all the questions, but at the same time, whether it's a health condition or a religious belief or just the belief that this is going to somehow impact my rights and my freedom, and without being political about it, this just, I think that people, have their decisions and their reasons for why they do whatever. So I just think for employers, it's a tough space. And then and thank goodness it's not mandated just yet for businesses with fewer than 100 employees. But like I said, depending on how this rollout goes and how this, I think it's by January 4th, if I'm not mistaken, is the deadline that the Biden administration put in place. Even though I think it does have testing in there as an option, if not vaccinated testing every week. But then who takes on that cost? I think that's where the politics come in. That's where the business, is it going to be a burden, undue hardship on companies to provide testing, or do employees have to go out and get tested themselves and bring back the proof? Or so I think it's just so many different variables with this mandate.
No, I definitely hear you, and it's really hard to pinpoint like exactly how it's going to roll out, because in reality, it does have a little political side to it. We don't want it to be, but it does have it. And so when we think about people's beliefs in politics, it's coming into play a little bit. And so there's only so much you can do if that is sort of the center around what they want to do. But yeah, it's going to cost, because we also have the weekly testing, and it's not a cheap thing. I mean, like right now, the federal government is willing to take on the cost, but is that something they're going to do forever?
Right.
When it comes to should all our taxes be going to test people that don't want to get vaccinated? And so as we begin to really stop and think about that, we got to understand what do we value as a society? Like, what do we really say? I think as a country, from the beginning, we've been about our freedoms to some extent for some people, and at least supposed to be. And so I think we're always pushing back a little bit against the grain. And so there will always be people that aren't going to do it. Like, that's just going to be, no matter what it is in society, there's going to be people that aren't going to do it. And so what you're trying to do, especially as an organization, is to get as many people as possible across the finish line. You'll never reach 100%, in my belief. Like, those, maybe a small company, maybe those that are even healthcare facilities don't have 100%. And so, you'll never get to 100%, but the goal is to get as far as you possibly can by doing everything you can for as many people as you can, because there's a percentage where there does become a herd immunity, and so enough people vaccinated will sort of protect us all as a group. And so we're trying to understand, as a community, how do we work together and get as many people to that point, so that we as a community can be protected against this particular virus, from it, again, switching up into different variants and causing more havoc. And so again, just doing those things, getting as many people vaccinated as you can. Understand that there's a goal of 100%, but the likelihood of you reaching 100% is probably not really going to unfortunately happen. Would love it, kind of like, you want to do everything, you want to lose all those 100 pounds, or at least that's for me, that I gotta lose. But if I lose about 20, 30, I'm good. So it's progress, not perfection.
Yeah, I think it's just still so many factors out there, especially, I mean, you talked about costs to the government as far as like paying for the testing for people. But then I think, there's still long-term costs because how many times are we going to have to get a booster in our life with this, the kind of never ending virus? So, which right now the government pays for the vaccines and the boosters. So it's such a conundrum of
It's a lot of issues, a lot of stuff in
issues
there.
wrapped around wrapped around COVID, where we just really have a lot to figure out, and I'm not sure when that will happen on both the governmental level as well as the corporate and company levels and business level, and then just as residents and citizens of this country and other countries around the world, where we just have so much to figure out, and it's really a cost burden that's long term on our system. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So, are there any upcoming initiatives, trainings, or anything that you want those to get in touch with you about?
Definitely. So, actually, next week we're going to be going over critical thinking as the foundation for thought leadership. And so, one of the things is we talked about filling your tool belt as a leader, definitely getting your ideas across to your team. So, because you got to sell them, like get them to buy in sometimes, especially if you don't got the funding, can't give them a raise, but you got to do this extra thing. So, how do you get people on board to do whatever this idea that you may have that needs to be done, either to make the organization a better place, to make our community a better place, whatever thought it is that you need to get out there? How do you really dig deep into it, tear it apart, and get it across to people so that they really can understand what it is, how to get people on board, and to get that message out? And so we'll be doing that next week, November 11th at 7 p.m. Virtually. And then it'll be sort of the kickoff of our level up series. And so we'll be again going into different topics. I think the next one is how to be an ally. And so, and then we're going to strategic planning for the new year. And then we're going to be talking about toxic burnout. And so there's like a lot of things that are going to be sort of pulled into these leadership topics that we don't necessarily have the ability, because we always talk about, communication and, sort of the basic ones that we go over. We don't talk about these other nuanced things that help you to become a better leader. And so that will be kicking off next week.
Wow. Well, sounds like you have a lot going on. And I see that we have scrolling at the bottom your information. So, but if you can just say where, anyone who's listening or watching can find you and connect with you.
Definitely. So I am on LinkedIn like literally almost all the time. So if you Google or search my name on LinkedIn, Natalie Robinson Bruner or Gladys Solutions, you connect with me personally, or you connect with our company. I share information for both of them on both sort of pages. That's the best way that you can reach out to me. So
Awesome.
LinkedIn.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I definitely have some announcements of my own that I want to share. And I have not done a plug on my blog. Y'all forgive me. No Glory Without a Story.
Okay.
So this is a collective of myself and 14 other authors that share our journey about entrepreneurship. And we have different tips in there for entrepreneurs and employers. And anyone who may be interested in starting or just figuring out how to continue to grow their business. Great information in the book. So you can find No Glory Without a Story at AnnMarieSorrell.com to purchase your autographed copy. Of course, while you're there, be sure to pick up Chronicles of a Serial Dater as well, just as another fun read. But I want to just kind of talk about some of the things that we have coming up. So with Mosaic Group, Mosaic Co-work, we're back in full effect. So if anyone is looking for office space, we talked about remote working here. So if you're tired of working at home or just need a break from your usual space, we have packages that start as low as $75 a month. And if you're looking for a professional corporate address, you can get that for as low as $55 a month. And you can learn more at mosaiccowork.com, or you can learn about Mosaic Co-work, as well as our advertising and marketing services at mosaicgroup.co. But in addition to that, we're super excited. We have our Broward location that we went and did a tour of. And so it's at the new YMCA on Sistrunk Boulevard on the 4th floor. And we are so excited about that location opening up in early 2022. So look out for more information. We're actually going to start accepting bookings next week. So you can go ahead and reserve your space, because we know we're going to sell out of space really quickly for our Broward County location. And then for those who follow Cannabiziac, we have some exciting things happening in November with Cannabiziac. We have partnered with Florida A&M University's FAMU Mary program, which is their medical marijuana educational research program. And we are educating diverse communities on medical marijuana, its uses, the legal versus the illicit and illegal side, so that people just informed, they know. There's so many people out there who have these qualifying conditions that could really utilize medical cannabis as a form of treatment instead of traditional pharmaceuticals, or to just be suffering in silence. But we want to make sure that people understand what it is, what your qualifying conditions are, how to get a recommendation from a qualifying physician, and what's where the legal versus illegal side of medical cannabis comes into place, especially here in the state of Florida. So you can learn more. And if you're interested in becoming a paid community educator, we are looking for community educators that can go through our training program and become certified. It's literally like a 2-hour training program where we train you how to become a facilitator. And you go in a community and you host these events and trainings or listening sessions, educational sessions, and you get paid to do it. So definitely check us out for that. We also have some really cool events coming up. We have our Hemp Happy Hour, which is next Wednesday. It's a great virtual networking event for anyone who's looking to start or grow their business in the cannabis industry. So Natalie, I don't know if you thought about that, but your coaching services can definitely be used with cannabis companies. So I don't know if you thought about it and tapping in, but it's a great way to connect with us through Cannabiziac and come learn about the industry, come connect with other business professionals, and just, really understand how you can tap into it. And then our Cannabiziac University and Book of the Month author is none other than Ms. Dashita Dawson, who has wrote the book on how to succeed in the cannabis industry. So definitely don't want to miss our webinar in a couple of weeks. So not next week, but the following week, as well as we'll be going over her book. And anyone who becomes a member this month will receive a complimentary copy of her book, How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry, as well as many other membership perks. And lastly, with Cannabiziac, we have our current incubator cohort happening now, but we will be rolling out our new cohort, which will start, our second class will be starting in late March. So applications are open for anyone who's interested in going through our business incubator program, which is, for 6 months, you're literally getting an in-depth training on not just entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship specifically in the cannabis industry. And this is for anyone, anywhere in the country or anywhere around the world who wants to join our educational program. So learn more about Cannabiziac at cannabiziac.com. As you can see, I have a ton of stuff going on.
It's all good. Congratulations. That's some amazing stuff. I want to check out some of that stuff for real, though. I actually had thought about the cannabis field and it's growing and it's really becoming a real thing. And I was just looking at it, they had opened up a dispensary down the street from my house, and I was like, okay, this is what we're doing now. I see.
Yeah, truly. I'm in West Palm Beach, just opened at least 2 or 3 locations in the past month. Mm-hmm. Pure Leaf recently opened up about 2-3 months ago as well. So the national MSOs and multi-state operators, they're opening up everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a budding industry, pun intended. and and that's why I started Cannabiziac, because I think a lot of people they're only thinking about the growing or the retail side of the business. But there's so much, just like any other industry, every single service is needed to support the industry. And we definitely need women and people of color in the industry. So Cannabiziac is here to provide that education, that resource, and that network, and that ecosystem that we're building to create that opportunity and create more businesses that can grow and expand. It's not to say that you can't continue doing what you're doing with any other industry. This is just an extension of industries for you to tap into. And it's a $90+ billion global industry, and it's going to continue to grow. I think they've just put out some new projections that by 2027, it's going to be about $130 billion global industry. So where are we in that space?
Unfortunately, like a lot of high yield, profitable spaces, not where we need to be. So
exactly. So, but we're changing that. Yes. Even if one company at a time, we're changing that through Cannabiziac. So definitely check us out, Natalie. And I always have to ask my guests, what is your favorite tea that you like to drink?
I like echinacea tea. It's something about it. Like, I just feel like it's like, those healing properties. I just love that. So, yeah.
I have, so this week I've drank quite a bit of ginger tea, and I love ginger tea. And ginger tea, of course, I prefer the natural ginger root that you can just kind of like cut up and crush it a little bit and boil it, because it just has, I feel like ginger is like the be all, cure all to everything. So it's definitely like one of my faves. So, so for those who are listening, echinacea and ginger tea, make sure you check those teas out for your healing properties and just relaxation. Yeah. I want to leave us with something that I listened to this morning, and I'm on this 28-day journey to being unblocked and unstuck. And whatever that means, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever that may mean, right? We just had a new moon last night on the 4th, which is one of the most, it's said to be one of the most transformational moons of this year, new moons of this year. And so a friend of mine sent me a YouTube video this morning. And so the message that I really pulled from it, and this may be for anyone out there that's listening, is I still believe. And it says, you don't have to help God out, try to manipulate things or force doors to open or convince people to be for you. Let God do it his way. Don't get in a hurry. You have to be mature enough to believe that the promise is coming and not to be frustrated while you're waiting. It's through faith and patience that we inherit the promises. God's time is the best time. And I quoted that from Joel Osteen. So
that's hard to do, especially as an entrepreneur.
Oh, it's so hard to do, right? So I just want to encourage you, Natalie, and anyone out there who is listening or watching, that, sometimes we may not get it right, or sometimes things don't come when we want it to come or happen when we want, or even happen how we want it. But it's important that we still continue to trust the process. We still continue to believe. We still continue to walk in faith and walk in purpose. And so that's what I want to leave you all with. And of course, my favorite quote is to, live out loud, laugh a lot, and love unconditionally, despite it all that you may be going through or that you've experienced. So thank you so much, Natalie, for joining me for another episode of Tea with Ann Marie. And I hope that your phone will be ringing off the hook after this podcast.
Your mouth to God's ears. Yes, ma'am.
Well, of course, any way that I can support you, my sister, you just let me know. And I hope that we'll connect at another fun event sometime soon.
I know I need to get out the house. It's time. So
I know it's time. It's time. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for who has joined us and is listening. As always, please make sure that you share this video because there's someone out there that will benefit from this information. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Ann Marie Sorrell and follow me on social media at Ann Marie Sorrell on Twitter, Facebook, and A Marie Sorrell on Instagram. And I'll see you next time on Tea with Ann Marie. Thank you.